just wanted to you know, just let our audience know that this particular is not really about race. It's more about economics, which is poverty. And that's something that we're going to have to learn. We're going to have to learn to not buy into the tactic, divide and conquer, because it is, when it boils down to it, as I say all the time, it's about money. Poor and the rich, the haves and the have-nots. And it doesn't have no color. It just don't, you know. That's a smokescreen for as I'm concerned. You know, now we can't just really throw racism out because it is it's present. It's present, and it's been here since we've been here. So we can't just dismiss it. But let's really start looking a little bit deeper, because when it comes down to it, that money is what they're talking about.
It's definitely there. It's definitely there and prevalent. I appreciate you sharing that, man.
Yeah, thank you for stopping in. I know y'all gonna go ahead and get that topic going and core issue. We want to thank everyone for listening to Straight Talk. Be sure to tune in next week, same time, same place. Are we gonna try to do a part 2 of this? Or?
Yeah, I mean it's really. I think that it's up to her, but after we meet, I think it'd be perfect to come back and share what we've sat down and consulted on and decided.
I think that'd be a great idea. I would look forward to coming back.
I would love to hear the strategies of what we're gonna do from this point on.
I was gonna ask you, can you host over at YZ maybe like a dinner or something? And I mean I'll support it or a sponsor.
Let's see. Give me some dates.
And we'll look at Wynna Faye, because she said when I brought up that date, she was like, well, people have to work. Okay. So it's communicating, because I chose after consulting with people what was the best time. And so you can't choose everybody. So talking with her and getting schedules of all of us, it would be a great next conversation for us.
Well, that'd be something. Yeah, let's do some email tagging and Facebooking and see what we can come up with.
And Almeta's gonna give Faye my number. Faye, you know you got my number. It's the same number for 15 years.
I need to get your number. I lost it. I had to text you.
His number is public.
It is. It's on my public place. Facebook.com/Tyree Bynum. It's on there.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna make this transition. We want to thank you again for listening. We hope that you call back in and that we continue this conversation. I'm sure that you got some information that can be used, and thank you for the stimulating conversation. Tune back in next week. Same time, same place. We're going to be here to bless your ear. You have a wonderful weekend. Find you a place to worship. And stay tuned for a core issue.
I like
with
that.
My brother, Tyree Bynum. God bless.
God bless. I like that. Find a place to worship. You ain't got to be with me, but find some place.
I have your email address, but give me your number. Because we really need to move on this. She's right. We need to resolve these things and
but you know,
come back together.
For them to, I'm just letting you know, for them to go straight to the heart of the wound, the unhealed wound. I'm good
with that.
Yeah.
And there's not too many people that can sit down and listen to it. So that's really. I didn't know what. I mean, that's spirit. I didn't know what they was going to share.
I want to hear it.
But they know it. They're one of the only ones that know it, man.
Because we're not going to get to where we need to be as a community if we can't listen to each other, hear it.
If we can't
apologize,
empty the cup.
Exactly.
It ain't gonna. But where we as a people, once we empty the cup, we gotta be willing to forgive, to be willing to trust, and to move forward. That's what we like.
So it's gonna take a united front.
It's
really coming together.
And it's gonna take some practice, because you're right. Talking about issues of race are hard. We don't know how to do it well. We need to practice that.
Came out.
It's finicky, ain't it?
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna move over here so I can see you. Because this a little.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. Let me turn this way and this way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I
move over here. You need me to move something else? How about if I just move this over here? Oh, you have me over there. Okay.
Yes, all right.
Oh no, I'm on camera. No.
Yeah. gonna record you on this one.
Man, normally I record myself, so I must really love you.
Well, let me just straighten up here and get everything all
I normally
organized.
record myself. Okay, you need your music.
No, take your time, man.
You log in.
They like that manifest your love.
You know what? I don't even need. You good, man? I don't need anything. I'm good with Pat.
Okay.
All right, you're listening to 89.5 FM, Missouri Source for in-depth news, diverse talk, and music of the world. It's not just radio; it's community radio. KLP in Columbia, Jeff City, Sedalia, the Lake, Mobley, Macon, Fayette, Fulton, all in country. So this is broadcast service of the New Wave Corporation. Love you, man.
Love you too, bro.
Hey, man, just the other day, I just want you to know, just the other day, I was at a meeting, and this lady was looking at me. I was like, she think I'm Lorenzo. And when I was leaving, she said, you married my best friends. And I was like, well, bless your heart, y'all. I said, how they doing? I said, help them water the union. So I just want you to know, man, I represent.
Hey, I'll be gone on the 14th and 15th. I'm presenting down at a conference, so
Okay.
I won't be able to make that meeting. But
Okay, we got you.
get with me, we get a date.
It's okay, man. It
All
really
right.
is. It really is. Okay, God bless. God bless. And you are listening to Core Issues. You just tuned into what I call the Soul Fitness Block. And so from 2 to 4, my dude Thomas Handsome, myself, we play hip hop. 4 to 5, we just call it straight like it is on Straight Talk with our community matriarchs, Miss Almeta, Miss Wynna Faye, and just they are the keepers of the lore. They are what's called the griots, the storytellers, the ones that when we look at the history, of the African people, history is passed down from the griots to the next generation, and only a few of the children are enamored with their stories and stick around to be like they told me a long time ago, to be close enough to grab the baton. Mm-hmm. So I know that I am a griot, and I definitely try to do the scholarship and the lore. And it's funny that when they was talking, 2 or 3 of the elders really invested heavily into me. And one of those people is one of my mentors, Chuck Booth, was one of the only black architects here in town. And also was a member of the Baha'i Faith, one of the only African-American members of the Baha'i Faith here in town. There's maybe 3 or 4 of us. And so it was a blessing that he gave all that to me, plus he was Cherokee, and so he really invested all of his lore. He took me through the Shark Bend neighborhood, showed me all the buildings that he had written the plans for, and explained to me who all the members were back then that did it, and who the members were now that are participating, and the kids of those individuals. And so, to be able to have that really changed me. I couldn't have that information and not step forward in the service. Mm-hmm. And so you can't. It wasn't my choice to say, man, forget that stuff. I don't care about the freaking community. I ain't doing it. It ain't happening. And then another elder will step in and share their story. And so it's certitude. So to be able to have a communication and just the chance to sit down with Pat. This is somebody that when I'm out in the community and I'm exhausted from serving, and I'm weary from the level of injustice on so many fronts that need a little light shined on, or need at least a witness. And when I'm right there, I look to my left and I see Pat Fowler. Just as weary, just as prevalent, and just as keen and acute, and the right voice at the right time, spirit led, based on serving the people and what's needed at the time. And so, my sister, to be able to sit down with you and to do what I call a legacy watch on core issues is a beautiful thing.
Your story about, was it Charles Booth? The person, Chuck Booth. Okay.
Charles Booth, yes.
And how he bestowed that history on you, and how you felt it was important then that you had an obligation to carry it forward. I think about, some of us get bitten by the bug, where we're going to do service for our communities, and we're not going to stop, and we're going to continue to stick around, and we're going to help others understand the issues. And I'm fascinated by what is it that helps a person become that person in their neighborhood. And you heard these amazing stories that otherwise were not recorded, were not being listened to. I try and figure out, what is it for me? Because you're right, we get weary. And I wonder, okay, what is it? I'm tired today. I'm in a bad mood. I care about my neighborhood, but I'm grumpy. I can't get out of my own way. Where is it? What do we pull out deeply from inside of us to say, but I can't stop. This is too important. I have to keep speaking to that.
Even when people say it's not, it's you, what you choose. Like,
yeah.
It's not.
It's almost like it's chosen for you, isn't it?
It's not a choice.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that it's not a choice, you really don't know who I am.
and then you have, but it's
Right.
it's almost as if that this path has been chosen for us. And then what we do with it is really, it's what unfolds in front of us. Right. And some days I'd like to say I always come at it with the right attitude, and sometimes I don't. I'm angry and I'm frustrated. And sometimes I come at it from, I'm very fortunate for what I have in my life. And God gave me the ability to speak from the podium, and God gave me the ability to look this stuff up and to carry it around in my head, even when sometimes I have to write it down on little 3x5 cards. That's never changed in my life. But where is it that we keep pulling it out of every time? And I'm always fascinated to hear where that comes from for other people, because I'm always looking for the encouragement to keep going. So maybe we all need to spend more time together. And we need to talk about what it is that we pull out. And I would love to hear Wynna Faye and Almeta tell me where that comes from for them. I think I would be blessed by hearing that story.
And being able to, and when we share stories with each other, that's when we share culture. Mm-hmm. How we think, how we act, how we feel, what makes us who we are, our walk. Mm-hmm. And when we share culture with each other, that's when healing happens. Mm-hmm. That's when you trust and you take an opportunity to be vulnerable with someone, and you test the water. You don't just be open. You test the water and see, and then you establish a bond and a connection. And that thing, whatever that is, that's eternal.
That vulnerability, though, I think is what we're having trouble with, because for us to talk about race and class in Columbia makes us vulnerable in that conversation. Right. And I'm a little better at it now as a mature adult than I was as a younger person. But I still have that sense of, I know how important the conversation is, but I have this sense sometimes that, I don't know if I know how to approach it. And so if we can come together in these 3 or 4 neighborhoods that are adjacent to each other and begin that conversation, boy, would that be just a wonderful opportunity for us to get started. Again, we have to keep doing this again. As generations change, we have to do it again.
It's a union. So it's not, when you take it past just us, it's something else. And but you're right, having that conversation I think is key. And I think because of where we're at as a people and as a species, but also as a city, that having people there willing to have that conversation is not per chance. Mm-hmm. It's by us, by all intents and purposes, we could easily not have a friendship, not have a good relationship, but since we've invested, it's there. It's not happening by chance. It's because we've invested into it. So I got a question for you.
Sure.
I'm just. Where was you born?
Where am I from?
Where are you from? Where was you raised?
Yeah.
What was like a typical day in your?
I am from what I would call the whatever television blended family. My parents divorced when I was very young. My mom took us 3 kids back to her parents, to her family in Northern Virginia. My dad remarried, and he missed his biological kids that he didn't see all year round, so he started accumulating other children. And so together, I'm one of 7 kids. We have there's 3 sets of us. My dad used to call them litters like we were puppies. And so we have this litter and this litter and this litter, and we have 3 different last names. But what I enjoyed when I was with my dad, and I only spent time about 6 weeks a year with him, it was school holidays, and the rest of the time I was with my mom, is that it didn't matter who called on the phone and what they called him by his last name. He always said yes. Mr. Sayers, yes. Mr. Fowler, yes. Mr. Holter Sorensen, he just responded. He never bothered to explain. He just responded, and he understood it. He understood it. He treated as well as you can treat all these children equally. And it wasn't a perfect world. It was not a perfect household. But I learned a lot from the grace that my dad had. Plus, he had a fabulous sense of humor. When you got 7 kids in a house, you got to have a fabulous sense of humor.
You have to be on your feet.
Oh my goodness! And because he was always constantly outsmarting us and telling us, I can outsmart you. I'm older than you. And we're like, darn. But
I did that already.
Yeah, and you're a dad. You know what that's like. You're always. It's not hard to outthink your kids, but then you have
7 with 3 letters.
Yeah, and you got to keep thinking about which. Yes, you get what I'm talking about. There's lots of that going on. So that's where I'm from. I lived in New England 6 weeks out of the year with my dad.
Okay.
And he remarried a woman who I was probably not very gracious about when I was a little kid, but she was married to my dad for 42 years, and she is my only surviving parent now.
Really?
I love that woman, and she comes to visit me once a year, and when she does, I'll make sure you meet her this year.
Please.
So then I live with my mom the rest of the year. I have an older brother and sister. I lived with my mom. We lived in cooperative housing. Mm-hmm. It's called Greenbelt, Maryland. It was a housing project that was built at the end of World War II for returning veterans. We didn't own our house, but we owned a perpetual lease.
Okay.
And part of my interest in affordable housing and all the ways I try and get myself into these conversations here is because I saw what that did for my mom's life, that even though she didn't make very much money, she was able owned that house, that unit.
And what did that change?
Psychologically, I think that, we knew that we didn't have as much as, other kids that we saw, but we didn't.
But she was proud of what she.
Yeah, and she, I tell people all the time, we might have been poor, but we didn't know it because we owned a perpetual lease on that house.
We was cool until they called us, Paul.
Yeah. Well, and it's that idea that, who you are when you walk out your front door every day is really important. And it changes a lot. It does. And she walked out that door. My mom was a registered nurse, but not with a 4-year degree. But she took herself pretty far. There were some issues that I'm not going to belabor the point on. But when she walked out of that house every day, she owned that house, and she had the ability to put that roof over our heads. Now, it was a cool place to grow up, now that I think about it, because Greenbelt, Maryland, it's Prince George's County. Prince George's County is not a place that has a really strong record of being fair to people of all races. In fact, they're under a consent decree now with the federal government still. Really? That's upsetting to me. That's still going on. And those were segregated times as far as, our community was mostly white, mostly Catholic, mostly Christian kind of things. Those upbringings.
When you get on the northeast, that's like 97%.
I know. And when I would go
Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland.
I know. People,
New Hampshire.
Oh my goodness,
it's
yes.
like 98%. Like, what
I
is
know.
black people?
Exactly. I would have friends come visit me later on when I ultimately moved to New England. They'd look around and say, where are all the black people? And I'm like, I know. It's not the same here.
Let's go to the other side of the railroad track. Let me show y'all where they at.
And neighborhoods in New England are more segregated. And in some ways, I grew up in a segregated neighborhood. But that piece about the affordable housing.
Right.
The fact that people owned these little units.
It was different.
It created something that they had that no one could take away from them.
It was a richness.
It was a sense of your own destiny. And so when I come back into Columbia and I look around and I say, I own this little bitty house. It needs a ton of work. There's no doubt about it. But I own this little bitty house, and so I walk out of my door every day. Me and the bank and I own this little house, and every day I walk out the door and I look back at it and I say, it's not perfect, but we're making progress. And I didn't come to being a homeowner until I was in my 40s, and now I realize how it grounds me and makes me grateful. And so the downtown area, Columbia, North Central, is full of these little bitty houses. Right. And I want other people, I don't have these desires to live in a lot of square footage. In fact, I was trying to stay under 1,000 square foot when I bought this house. And there was they put an addition on the back. If I'd ripped that addition off, I'd be under 1,000 square feet. That's where I want to be.
So you downgrading just because you want to down?
I just think that there's something about, how much space do I need to take up in the world? And I don't have any children. I have way too many little animals. But how much space do I need to take up in the world? And the houses in North Central are perfectly positioned for families, if they have 1 or 2 kids. They're affordable. They have, they need some love, no doubt about it. They need some love, but they have the ability to provide that for other people. And I am trying to find ways to encourage that. That's what I think my mission is. And how I got that, maybe that came from Greenbelt, maybe that came from my mom. I don't know, but how I got that, I am stuck with that bug. And every time I look around me, I'm like, affordable housing. 774 units of affordable housing, and we got to work like crazy to make sure we protect it. And that's pretty much what drives my bus every day.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being able to share that with me, but also to be able to pull from your childhood to say, you know, this is where that track came from.
I think it did.
This is why this is as much a part of my awareness and my blood that's pumping in my veins. This is just. Let me ask you another question.
Sure.
When you was in high school, we're going to go back. What was some of the things that, you know, from being in the North, did you grow up? So you grew up.
I was in the Washington, D.C. area for school because mom lived in Greenbelt, Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C. So I went to school there, and then in the summers I'd go visit Dad and my stepmom.
Okay. So, you know, my summers I was always in St. Louis. So I was immersed in the culture of where I grew up. And so it's parallel. It's funny to have that because it was during the teen. So when you started making the move of going through school and picking these pieces from the world, you know, from family tradition, all these different pieces, and decided to go to school, when did that transition happen, and what was that?
You know, I was such an awkward teenager. I try and blank out that part of. I mean,
what do you mean awkward? Like
I
was a nerd.
I wasn't a nerd. I was just, you know, I mean, I sort of.
I know I was bookmarked.
You know, I liked to. I did well in school. I don't know that I was tremendously well read, but I was in this little competition with a couple of kids in the class, mostly boys, getting the better grade. And so it was when I finally went to college, I was shocked when the young men in the class were getting better grades than I was. I'm like, what? This does not happen, you know, because in high school it was, you know, I guess, anyway, in the two classes I took with these two particular bright young guys, brainiacs, I could beat their test score, and I took some pride into that. But then I got to college and I couldn't do that anymore because, you know, there was just, I mean, everybody is motivated, you know, and so I had some small little fame, I guess, around the fact that one guy's name was Tim and the other was Warren, and Warren is married to my friend and I still communicate with them. I don't know what happened to Tim. But Tim, Warren, and I were the ones that we would share the top score in both psychology and history. And so, you know, I took a little pleasure out of that. But that is probably the only thing that distinguished me in high school. I mean, I mostly followed other kids around.
But you made it through.
Oh, yeah, I made it through high school. I got there.
That's awesome.
I got there. I joined a couple of clubs my senior year. I think I was on the yearbook. I don't remember anything about it except that we wasted a lot of time. But I'm sure we published a yearbook that year. And then I knew that my way out was going to school. There were some things that went on in my home and some other things that I knew weren't good for me.
You was like, this is
school's my way out. And so I went away to college. I chose my college. I tell college kids this now, and they think it's funny because I work at the university. I chose my school by how far I could get away from home and pay in-state tuition because I was aware of the cost of all that. Now, this is the kind of decision a 17-year-old makes, right? Right. So I did go away to college. It took me a while to figure out what my major was. I chose my major by the first class I got to be in. I mean, really. I mean, what kind of decisions are these? You know? I mean, but you're 17. You're confused. You're a mess. You know, young people's lives are messy.
Was it culture shock too?
Yeah, it was because I had to be more. I was more responsible in my family. When I was back at home and helping take care of things that I think ordinarily adults would have taken care of. So when I got to college and I had no responsibility, I was a mess. I didn't know how to plan my day. I didn't know how to even get any structure around it. I didn't do well my first semester. I slept through algebra. I mean, literally slept, head on the desk. So there were a lot of things that I had to sort of figure out for myself and rebound by. But going to school was a good decision. And leaving home, although I didn't go that far, I mean, I still came home. I took the bus Greyhound to me and Greyhound several times a semester to come home. But it helped me mature. And when I think about how many young people we have in Columbia, particularly young people aging out of foster care, this is where this really resonates with me. I needed to go away to college for somebody to help me mature and make good decisions and gain some control over my emotions and my impulses. When we have young people that after age 17 or 18 don't have that structure, oh my goodness, you know, my transitional living program was college. What are we doing for the young people here who don't have that? And so I really think that we were going to have a transitional living program built in North Central. There's some problem with the funding. It's not coming along as fast as it needs to. We need a dozen of those homes in Columbia, if not more, so that young people, particularly in the foster care system as they come out, they need us to wrap our arms around them and to love them through those 4 years until they get enough practice doing the kind of adult things that we all have to do, like figure out how to get a job, figure out how to...
So, have you heard about the youth council idea that I've shared?
Tell me more. I may have it. I'm just not I'm not remembering today.
So I've shared it a few times on the radio, I think at a couple meetings, and on Facebook. So just in different avenues I've shared. But I'm working with Claire Lee and a few other people for Edgemont to basically get a pool of 30 people to donate $100 to get, and then to invite youth and really recruit youth to come together to start a youth council so that they can figure out their own fundraising, figure out their own activities in the community. They can do their own process, and we'll just offer guidance and financial support and maybe accountability, accounting support. But to let them, because this community has nothing for youth.
Yes.
And it's been that way since I escaped as a kid, growing up right here in Columbia.
Because you went to the Marine Corps, didn't you?
That was my way out. I escaped. I started training at 13. In 16, I left. And if I wouldn't have left, I'd have had a felony just like most of my peers. That was just part of the environment. There's no chances for the youth. And then there's no rites of passage, which is, I think, what you're saying. And if there's no rites of passage, they just do what they want to do.
Yeah. And
so that was your way. So school. So
however messy that was, that's how I got to the next part.
So how long did you go to school, and what was that when you finally chiseled it down, and when did you finally step into your skin? Was like, okay, this is me.
I don't know when I think I have stepped into my skin now, but I'm not sure exactly when that happened. But my last semester of college, I went back home to do an internship in the Prince George's County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, and I was in the juvenile division. I was in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, and I was in the, with Prince George's County still being in difficulty with race relations. Right. I saw some of that there, and so I did my senior paper on juvenile justice system. And I got a sense to see what was working. And surprisingly, some of the same strategies that were working 30 years ago are still the very same strategies that work today. It's just it requires a certain funding and dedication for them. And that's that intense programming, small groups, wraparound services for young people. That was successful 30 years ago. It's successful now. So we need to find some collective will to work on that. So, but I did that as a young person, not really, everybody has to have a project, right? When you graduate, you have to. They call it a capstone now. But I had to write one of those things. So they call it a capstone at the university. So my capstone was on juvenile recidivism rates, and it was back before we had too many computers.
Recidivism.
Recidivism.
What's that?
Repeat offenders. How many times will a juvenile repeat? And is it dependent upon what their first crime is?
What the factors are.
Yeah, and was it dependent upon what their initial sentence was and what kind of treatment program they went into? And I did the best I could with the amount of data that one could manage in a semester.
Right.
And I had a friend, now this is 30 years ago, but back then, do you remember that Radio Shack put out the very first computer years ago? And you used your little television screen, and then you had a little keyboard, and I don't remember how they communicated, but anyway, my friend, who I went to class with, he wrote the little program that I used to do all this. And so I just sat at his little tiny television with this little keyboard and not understanding anything except it was a TRS-80 computer. And he did the calculations for me, and I threw them into little charts that I wrote in pencil, because back then we used typewriters. And anyway, I wrote this paper. And I think that's one of those things that has informed my decision-making since then, that we have to provide the same kind of, I had parents that were pretty disciplined in what they expected of me, regardless of the flaws in our home. So how do we then provide that same structure and love? I always knew I was loved, even if I didn't quite know what was going on with me. So how do we provide that same thing for our young people? And I think that's probably that other thing that encourages me to keep working on community issues.
Okay, excellent. That's deep. But I really appreciate you sharing, because, a lot of times I've shared my story, my personal story, a lot of times, quite a few times in the beginning. But then once you walk it, you kind of forget to share your story, and especially when you live it more. And so, it's interesting to hear about ourselves in that way. We're going to take a quick break.
Sure.
And we come back, let's talk about some of the actual issues, because I know that there's a lot of different ways, different perspective of what you're looking at. Quite a few times when people look at us, they see our persona, they see what we are, but necessarily don't accurately see what we are. And so maybe we can talk about some of that, and then futuristically, what are some of the things that you're interested in, and some ways for people in the community that didn't know about you, how they can connect with you and stuff like that. So there we go.
Okay.
Hey, I do want to take time to, we have a couple of, let me look over here and see what we got. Okay, we got a couple of, I'm going to have to take just a second. You got to multitask, and I was so into the conversation that I neglected to stop to multitask over here to see what commercials we have to share. Well, not commercials, but underwriting.
We have sponsors. That's why
Yeah.
we're on the air. Sponsors are important.
They are. And speaking of that, for everybody out there, there's quite a few, and it's only $10. So you can call up here to KLPN 874-1139 anytime to get any of your information across, and PSAs are free. And they also have a community calendar on KLPN that you can put your events on there that goes out to 40,000 people, that visit the website each month. So, hey, this program is brought to you by listener support and a donation from North Village Arts District Farmers and Artisan Market, located at the historic Wabash Station. Sundays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. This weekend at the market, they always have activities. And I think that even though we're still doing this one, they haven't updated some of the events, and it's getting kind of cold over there.
I think this is the last Sunday.
Okay, so more info, special events calendar at farmandart.com to get the latest information on that. So they be jamming over there. And also, this program is brought to you by listener support and a donation from Unity of Columbia. On Sunday, October the 28th, Unity will hold a fall festival and silent auction at 1600 West Broadway, starting at 12:30 p.m. and featuring music from Violet Vonderhaar, a potluck lunch, and a bouncy house for the kids. Bouncy house.
I love bouncy house. I got a bouncy house story to tell.
Okay, and proceeds benefit Unity of Columbia and CASA, advocates for abused and neglected children. More info at unityofcolumbia.org. Love them. Love them. All right, so you have a story?
Well, I want to tell you a bouncy house story, and then I also want to talk about CASA, which I think is a wonderful organization. I have wanted to go. They didn't have bounce houses when I was a kid, and ever since I've seen them, I'm like, these are fabulous. And then every now and then you hit somebody has a little sign that says you can't. I think it went dead.
No.
Okay. You can't go in if you're taller than this or you weigh more than this or whatever. And I have been trying forever to get in one of those. So I worship at First Baptist down on Broadway over here, the Donald Duck Church. It looks like
Donald Duck.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Okay.
Right.
So we have a fall festival, and this year it was a pirate ship, and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a bouncy house and it's a pirate ship, and they actually let me in, and so I scampered. I scampered up there. I went in. I slid down it. I rolled out the door. It was rather ungracious because I'm not a little kid. I'm not that mobile. I sort of had to roll out and flop onto the lawn, but I loved every minute about it. Now I don't need to go back. I've done it. But I have been trying since, I want to tell you how many years, since bouncy houses became popular, but not for people my age. So anyway, I love bouncy houses. Those are fun.
Hey,
and the kids are having a great,
Hey, I rode the merry-go-round the other day with my kids. I jumped up there.
That moves pretty quick, actually.
And the way that I did it, they was like, wow, Dad, what are you doing? I had my legs up.
Did you go up one of the horses when I'm down, or not more than one at the same time? Yeah. You know,
like,
it moves quickly. It moves very quickly.
We could do that. I was like, you can't. I can't.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to mention court-appointed special advocates because that's one of those programs that when I have more free time, when I'm no longer working full-time, I really think that because part of what that program does, my parents did this for a couple of years after they retired, and they did it as a team, which they both had different skills, and so it helped them. But there are children that, again, children in foster care, and they need an advocate. And what the advocate does is their advocate. They pay attention to what's going on for the child, and then they go into court with the family, the foster family, or whomever, and they are a separate voice to the judge about what's best for this kid or what they've observed about this child. And I think that it's the program is relatively new in mid-Missouri. It came online since I've moved here.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that I know that we don't have enough CASA volunteers, and I know how important the work is, what they do. So how wonderful that they're one of the sponsors for today's conversation. Yeah, it's one of the things I want to do in the future.
Excellent.
I want to be a CASA volunteer.
Now, I know that that there's only so many hours in the day.
Yes.
You know, and we have to kind of pick and choose the battles and how we invest our time and resources. And we only, you know, from the day we're born, we only have so much amount of money, so much amount of time, so much amount of resources and days that we're going to be able to enjoy to craft something that, from based on certain beliefs, that we might need that after that we put away our mortal frame. So there might be some aspects of personality, person, soul, spirit, whatever, heart. So for you, when it comes to, you know, and so far we talked about your childhood upbringing. We talked about just some of the things that you're passionate about locally when it comes to looking at affordable housing models and how that's important. We talked to last hour about just some of your openness and awareness, you know, serving on the Neighborhood Association president, and that's a title that we share currently. But to be able to really continue that conversation in that way, and being able to sit down. I didn't put you on the spot, and I had no idea that I know it's their show, and I had no idea that we're going to call in, and I had no idea that they were going to look at you and confide in you to be able to share. And you know, each person is kind of known in certain ways, and trust has been one that that when I look at you, it's easy to relate. The times that I have talked to you, it's easy to you know, you see a genuine aspect that when you, and I could tell some of that just by what you're talking about with your upbringing. There's no superficial. It's just, you know, this is who I am. But you don't get that a lot, and so that's one of the things that are needed for people to be able to do that. But where did that come from?
You know,
is that a Virginia?
Northern Virginia. You
is
know,
I think it's a Virginia thing. I don't know.
I don't. You know, I even though I was raised in a religion, but not very religious. We didn't attend church as a family. But then, as a young adult, I just made a conscious decision to go to church. And I think that even though I'm an imperfect member of, I'm no longer a practicing Catholic, but I do worship in a Christian faith. I think part of it comes from, when I'm really, you know, not seeing the priorities here, I stop and say, what's God's will for me? You know, I have been given, you know.
You ask yourself that question?
I ask myself that question a lot. I'm obviously a good talker. You know, I mean, I tell everybody I talk for a living at my job. So I'm able to communicate well, and I've practiced that. I'm a lot better than I used to be. But it's important to me to be able to present information well. So God gave me that gift. So what else does God want me to do with whatever other gifts that He has bestowed upon me? And so, you know, I have my, you know, my little personal hobbies and things that, you know, entertain me. But mostly I realized that somewhere, just like you, that story that Chuck told you, something pulled something out of me and said, you know, I am on a mission. I have an agenda every day. I will tell you what my agenda is every day. But I got one. I start the day every day with an agenda. Now, does that mean that every day I'm productive? No. I mean, I have days where I just sort of lay around and
What?
I'm a slacker.
Hold on.
Yeah.
So you have days where you actually relax? I think
I
they call that the Sabbath.
I don't know that I call it relaxing, but you know, I have this love relationship or whatever. I have this struggle going on with my house. I did buy an old house intentionally to learn how to fix it up. And so some days I spend time on my house. Some days I lay around and I worry about my house, and I'm just distraught with all the things I have to do.
I don't worry about my house at all. I have like total opposite. I'm like, whatever.
And some days I can take the time to sit on my front porch and really enjoy it, and you know, because that's really why we do all this work. But you know, I'm as flawed a human being as anybody, so please keep that in mind. That you know, I lose my temper. I say things inappropriately. It's funny how many of my friends initially were surprised when I said I go to church every Sunday, and they thought, you know, I know how to swear like a sailor. Let's just say that. And so it took a while for my friends to get used to the idea that I'm a regular churchgoer, because they have seen that side of me where I know how to swear like a sailor, and I try not to do that in front of older people I respect and my mom. But aside from that, I mean, we all have.
But
we're flawed.
Yeah, and I try to tell them that that particular scripture, it says in the future, and they shall not cuss. I try to tell them biblically that they say in the future.
Well, let's talk about it easy, because it's really important.
We have a call real quick,
okay,
and then we'll come back.
Let's talk about it easy.
We'll jump
I
right
want
into
to.
that.
Okay.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Thank you so much. Hello, caller.
Hi.
Hey, thank you so much for calling in. This is a really good friend of mine, Nanette Ward. And how you doing?
Good.
Such a, ain't it nice? And this is someone. And Nanette, we have Pat Fowler on the line, or not
Hi,
on the
Nanette.
line, but here in the studio right now. And you guys know each other.
We
right?
do know each other, yes.
And when it comes to someone that has helped to take a conversation forward in Columbia for quite a long time, especially when it comes to disabilities, when it comes to equality, when it comes to just getting to someone taking you into a conversation that you don't really trust whether you'll get out or not.
Mm-hmm.
Nanette has been at the helm for decades. Not trying to make you seem old, Nanette.
Oh, God, decades, no.
But to be able to take him in, maybe take him in and bring him out alive. So Nanette, you since those days, you've been really active, really doing a lot when it comes to slavery, or what they call it now, human trafficking. And there's more people now that are in slavery than were at the height of slavery when it comes to chattel slavery in the United States. So please share a little bit of information about an event that you have coming up, if you don't mind.
Well, first, I want folks to know that there is an organization called Central Missouri Stop Human Trafficking Coalition. Folks can go to the website, www.stophumantraffickingmo.com, and we have an email address, help@stophumantraffickingmo.com. It's all volunteers, so we don't have any paid staff.
All volunteers?
All volunteers.
So, man.
No staff, unless we get more money. But really, all our money goes to serve victims that we have right here in Missouri, including Columbia. The other thing we do is raise awareness through presentations, whether it's just like the volunteer at the table with 6 free African American about human trafficking, because they certainly serve people that come through who may have come from that kind of background, to presentations to law enforcement and social service providers that for several hours long, and everything in between, church groups, school groups, anyone and everyone who wants to know about it. We have modern day slavery as an issue locally.
Yeah.
I know that's really hard for a lot of people to get their head around.
I mean, most people, when you just said that, most people just they explained it away just now. Can you repeat that, please?
There is slavery right here in Columbia, Missouri.
Okay.
There was, if people want to go to the Vox magazine online issue that ran August 30th, there was a great feature that I thanked them for. The reporter did a wonderful job. It was focused on a local human trafficking case that involved the police department and an individual who had been trafficked as a minor right here in Columbia. And she did a wonderful job. And the wonderful thing about the story, if people get their eyes on it, is that the survivor spoke to the media for the first time, telling her perspective of what happened to her. And it really a wonderful story. People need to read that. She was a minor because different reasons why people end up that way. Because there's disability, there's vulnerability, abuse,
Right.
there's not good judgment. There's lots of reasons.
There's lots of reasons.
It happens.
Yeah.
But, so we have events where we want to do both raise awareness and also raise funds to go directly to help victims. It's called No More Slaves, and the MO is more in capital for Missouri with a line before and after MO.
Okay.
And it's about
No, Mom.
happen. Yes.
And
So
where's that going to be at?
community symposium to teach folks a little bit about human trafficking, but most exciting is the fact that we're having the co-founder of Truckers Against Trafficking. And if folks go to their website, it will be worth your while. It's www.truckersagainsttrafficking.org. Co-founder is Kyla Lieber. I think folks listening will probably appreciate that it's a family, not-for-profit. It's a mother and her 2 adult daughters that
Okay.
do this not-for-profit. They
Ah.
actually make resources available so that the trucking industry, travel plaza industry can be trained and educated. And
Because that's one of the areas. I mean, that's one of the biggest areas when it comes to human trafficking is the truckers. Man, when you think about the history of AIDS in Africa, that spread a lot based on the truckers. That those places that they congregate. So those are some of the areas that it's most critical. Exactly. Who won't be predators, but will actually be healthy advocates to be the heroes. That's it. Okay.
Saturday, November 3rd.
Okay.
5 to 8 p.m. at Parkgate Center. We are wanting folks to become a member of the coalition, obviously for the funds to help victims. It's $25 for an individual, $40 for a family, and $5 for students. There are scholarships available.
Okay.
People can't manage that but want them to still be a part of it. So that's the cost of coming to the event is membership.
Okay. And I should definitely be a part. I've supported you guys for since I was aware myself for like the last 4 or 5 years. So definitely. And do you have a Facebook event for that?
Yes, we do, and I can't.
Okay. So I'll find your event and I'll let people know that I'll put it on my Facebook page.
Yes.
Which
In fact, I sent you the Facebook link.
okay, perfect.
And it's
Okay, so I'll put that on my page.
Freshman, 5 to 8. We're going to have some local bloggers who do stories of survivors.
Okay.
Folks will be able to meet panel members on this issue of modern-day slavery. There are some local folks as well as Kyla Lieber, who's the co-founder of Truckers.
What? Okay. Sounds like an awesome event. So hey, I really appreciate you calling in, and we wanted to definitely give you time because we definitely want to support what you guys are doing.
Thanks for getting me in. I appreciate it.
Oh, love, and it's been too long, man.
I know.
It's been too long.
Send you a hug.
I know, but I really appreciate the love, birthday wishes, and just your presence as a soul mama in the life of my kids. I appreciate that.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks so much.
Okay, all love.
Thanks, Pat. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Isn't she awesome?
She is, and I want to tell you how I met Nanette
How you
the
met?
first time.
How you
I
met?
went to one of the conversation circles that
Study
she,
circles. Yeah.
study circles, and it was about the achievement gap in Columbia. And this was probably, I was still living north of town, so it was
6 years ago.
6 years ago maybe. And I was in awe of the people in the room and the kinds of candor they had in that environment.
Trust.
And I learned a lot, and I walked out of there, and I came out with.
Wow.
I thought about, I listened to some of the things, and there's a teacher at Hickman, and his first name's Mark. I want to say it's Zanda, but I don't know if that's his right name. Janda. Okay, Mark Janda. He was talking about our obligation as adults to role model the kids. And I walked out of that thing thinking, I can't behave poorly in public. I'm a mature adult. I need to make sure that my behavior shows young people around me. This is how we navigate difficult things. This is, I can't lose it in the grocery store anymore if there's young people there. And it was a funny moment. Not that I always lost it in the grocery store, but, I walked out of there thinking, I really have an obligation. I'm an adult. And I have to behave and I have to show young people that I can moderate conflict well. I can listen to them. And there was any number of things that I got out of that conversation. And Nanette was the person who started that conversation. And so I remember, that stuck with me. There was a lot of things that stuck with me. Nathan Stevens telling the story of his brother. That stuck with me. And Nathan and I are friends, and I see him periodically. In fact, Nathan and I have this joke where I know how to find him on the sidewalk. I need to go speak to Nathan, so I will go out looking. And then I find him, and I have the conversation I hope to have with him. He's busy. He's busy. He's got a lot of things going on.
Chase him down.
Yeah, and that tends to be my style. When I want to find you, I will chase you down.
You will.
And I know enough places to go looking for you, too.
You should have had my cell phone by now.
I know.
I told you, I said, you got to text me. You text me, you get an immediate response.
I know. And now I got it written down again, so I will do that. But let's talk about EEZ.
Please.
Can we? Okay.
We have to.
Okay, we have to. Okay. So EEZ is an initiative by some private business owners and with city-funded support to bring jobs to Columbia. And I am not opposed to jobs. In fact, I spend a lot of time talking about the need for better paying jobs in Columbia.
Right. And I'm one of the main examples of bringing jobs to Columbia.
Yes. Right, and your story, and I should mention how we know each other. You and I were working a second job when we met years ago. We were both working for MU football.
Yes.
Both of us in a temp agency, wearing the little bright yellow shirts that, staff. And so I met you probably 13 years ago. I think it was in the fall of 1999 was the first time we met, because we were both temps. We both were there for that purpose. Those were second jobs. We know what it's like to work second jobs.
Right.
So
I was the boss.
Were you the boss?
So I was the one that hired everybody.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
But so that wasn't your second job. Then. That was your real job.
That was my
Did
job.
you have a second job at the time?
No,
because you had enough things going on that was busy
I had
enough.
other clients like the city and county, but that was my.
Well, I bet you worked. Bet you worked more than 40 hours a week at that job, because just the nature of it. Yeah, it was really something. And so I met you there, and I'd run into you occasionally, but it was delightful when you stepped up for Douglas Park and I stepped up for North Central, and we actually got to have conversations.
Yeah.
And things that we talked about after one of the Landlords Against Crime meetings, and the things that you brought up, which I thought were very important to be brought up.
This year I offered to say something, to speak, and they didn't want my speech. And I was like, okay, sorry.
Yeah, well, we're all a work in progress, and we have to.
I missed it. I was planning on going.
I didn't go either. I actually I skipped 2 meetings this week because I was just kind of down on the weather, and I thought I'm going to stay home for a few days and sort of regroup.
Me too.
Yeah. And I feel guilty about it. Yeah. I feel bad. Okay, but let's get back to EEZ. Okay, EEZ. Okay, so this is an initiative that under the intention of bringing well-paying jobs to Columbia. Now, my first problem with it is I don't believe in this economy that those are well-paying jobs. If you want to raise your family,
gotta be at least $11.74, so at least $12 an hour.
It's at least $12 an hour, but
$24,000.
But $12 an hour is not enough to be the primary breadwinner of your family. If you have 2 or 3 other adults in the house, you are.
Yeah,
and
$35
so,
per household.
and I would have so fewer problems with this if we would just admit that that's not a well-paying job. That's an entry-level job. Okay, so we start with that. We have a definitional difference. Let's just have some honesty about this. If you take one of those jobs, if they create them, and then if they direct them to the population that they say they're intended for, and this is really my big issue with EEZ, they have talked about, well, we can encourage this. We're going to use the poverty numbers, the demographics of people in the central city and some other neighborhoods, the Whitegate area and other neighborhoods. But we're not doing enough to guarantee that those are the very individuals that get these jobs, because it may be at a better wage than what they're currently making. It's not a good wage, but it may be incrementally better. So until I see the kind of effort that I know that city staff and private business people are capable of, because I read the big old thick binder of everything they did to bring IBM here.
You read the binder?
I read the binder.
Okay.
It's still somewhere in my house. I thought about getting rid of it one day because it just was making me angry, and I thought, there's a reason to hold on to that. But I collected all those documents, and I read that binder. And so I know that they had the ability to dot every I and cross every T. And if they were to do that with this EEZ program, I would have far fewer objections to it. But what I see is you're going to blight my neighborhood that I spend time trying to bring people together and to generate enthusiasm as. I think that you do us a disservice when you put the label of blight on us. You do a disservice to the African American community when you do it to them, not the first time, but the second or third time it's been done to them. Right. We don't admit that they're not well-paying jobs, and we're not making sure that they're targeted for the population we say they're intended. So when you have all of those 3 layers, and you add to that it undermines the funding mechanism for our schools, and I think one of the biggest pressures we have in this community is we have children that, because of all the obstacles and stresses in their lives, they're not coming to school ready to learn.
Right.
Because there's too much financial pressure in their homes, there's not enough nutritious food, they haven't been well rested, all the things that poverty brings to a child's life. And so we're going to take more money out of the system.
Factored in.
No, and they're not factored in.
Right.
But you and I mean, I've had to work a second job before in Central Missouri. I'm sure that you've worked incredible hours to support your family. You know that when you're tired and when you can't be at your best and you can't pay attention to all those things, and when you have families that are under that kind of stress, where mom and dad work not just one job but two jobs, and I just don't like us pretending that these are well-paying jobs. Now, all of those layers to me are, it tips the scale that we shouldn't be doing this. I've heard some noise that they may be willing to take our neighborhood off the map in favor of looking at a TIF district as a way to redevelop the business loop. I would like to hear more about that. And this is a neighborhood trust issue. Are you going to bring us
is tax increment
financing? And it's a district, not a project, because we've got a couple buildings going on where you get to take the increase in the taxes and pump them back into the costs of, the roads and the curbs and everything around it. But
Right.
So if we're going to do a TIF district, if that's a good thing to help redevelop the business loop, then let's have a conversation that includes the neighborhoods now. And don't come to me as the neighborhood association president, or you as the neighborhood association president, after the plan's already made, and pretend they just wrote the plan.
Exactly.
Come on. It's not my first rodeo. I genuinely want to be in there with my neighbors and with my colleagues in Benton Stevens and Ridgeway and Douglas Park. I want us to be there together, listening and saying, okay, that's good for our neighborhood, that's not good for our neighborhood. Because that's not good for our neighborhood, you need to do something different that truly enhances our neighborhood.
Right.
And not just for the limited interests of a small group of people.
Don't just use us.
Exactly. And don't disregard the fact that the disparity in Columbia is growing wider. And I don't understand why, with the cluster of affordable homes that are in your neighborhood and my neighborhood, that we are not doing everything we can to protect that subset of homes and to encourage people to move in and to help them learn the skill sets to fix them up and to create homeowners and not so many renters. And, these are strategies. This is not rocket science. The city can figure all those things out.
Right.
Because our neighborhoods would be better if we're more homeowners and fewer renters, and we have people who can earn enough from their primary job that they can then take the time to help supervise homework with their child, to take some of the stress off that household, to make sure that the kids are doing nutritious things and have the undivided attention of a caring adult. And when you have more than one job, you don't have the ability to do that.
And ultimately, the family structure is defeated.
Yes.
And the village
Yes.
is gone.
And, in some ways I was raised by my neighborhood. When I lived in Greenbelt, Maryland, the neighbors, whatever my mom wasn't able to summons up, they surrounded me. Now, I often thought that they were paying way too much attention. But you know what? Those neighbors were the vigilance that I needed to grow up in a safe and secure environment where they called me on my stuff. As I was out of line, that someone was telling my mother before she hit the front door. And so if we disintegrate those bonds in a downtown neighborhood that has affordable housing, we're doing all of us a disservice. And I think that what's happening right now is business people see the benefit of redeveloping our neighborhood, and they're not listening, or we're not able to make a more compelling argument about the benefit of creating those community bonds.
Right.
Were you raised by a neighborhood grandma who watched you go to school and said, hey, Tyree, you better do your homework. Are you ready for school today? Tuck in your shirt. All of those things, whatever that looks like in your childhood. We were all raised that way. So let's create those bonds so that exists in the neighborhoods we live in now.
Exactly.
And that's what, that's how I spend my time. That's what's important to me, because other people did that for me. And I think that you had a certain number of people, both before and after. I was reading a little bit about your background. But, the military, there's probably as difficult as the military is, though that was a way to teach you a caring structure that you could use to guide your life and take you to the next step in your life. So,
Pat, for me, I had to recruit them myself.
Really?
Actively, because I knew that if I did not heal that hole of fatherlessness in my life, that I wouldn't have made it. And so they invested highly into me. So look, this is your time. So let me just recap.
Can I tell you a story about that too? Because it wasn't until one of my friend's dads passed away recently, and I wasn't able to get to the funeral. And I wrote to the pastor of the Catholic church where I was raised, and I said, I'm sad I can't be there because Mr. O'Brien was an important person in my life. But I want to tell you the story of 3 separate families. There were 3 kids in my family, and there was some turmoil in our house. There were 3 separate families in that parish, and each one of them took one of us. And the Burchick family took care of my brother. the McNamara family took care of my sister, and the O'Briens and Mrs. Bryant, who was a single mom, took care of me. And that all came out of the church we attended. I didn't do anything to earn that. These wonderful women and men took care of me and my siblings. And you know, when I think about that, I think that exists in this community. We're not recognizing it and rewarding it and celebrating it, but that exists. And I bet, you know, I'm so glad to hear that you knew how to cultivate that for yourself. And later in life, I've been cultivating that for myself. But at that very basic thing, nobody, I didn't ask for any of that. It was given to me.
And you know, Pat, being in a position of leadership in my community, what I've seen is the elders have come to share. And when it comes to the white community, I've seen that there's a disparity with that. Mm-hmm. And so I have a beautiful support structure I would like to share with you as well, and introduce you to some of these special people in my life, which is Wynna Faye and Almeta or something. So, so hopefully we can extend this, and I think we have an opportunity to really keep galvanizing the trust in this community, and I'd like to be a prayer partner, but also continue to be a partner with you in the community to continue to do this work. And when I look at legacy, and I look at people who have a rich legacy in life, you're one of the people that I celebrate and recognize. And so
well, that's kind of you to say.
It's true. So let's get ready for the next show, Reggae Party. They're going to play some beautiful reggae music for the next few hours. We have a conversation that I'm going to send out a schedule and check with those beautiful ladies to see if we can maybe have a dinner together. And of course, when you see her out in the community, now where you work?
I work at the university.
Okay.
And I am almost 3 years now without a car, so I walk or I ride my bike. Although I have a friend's car I'm borrowing right now.
Hey, and speaking of what she's talking about with walking, PetNet, the new Comet video came out. So check it out on YouTube. Comet by Paladon. So it's a Tyree. Actually it's youtube.com/Tyree Bindum. Check out my new website, TyreeBindum.com. So I'm just rebranding myself and trying to make this happen. And much love to everybody out there. Thank you so much for listening in. And Pat, please feel free to come back anytime you got something that's on the news or your community needs to know about. Call in the Straight Talk, call in the Core Issues, and let us know. I mean, that's what I'm here for. And
I think you and I have some work to do now in the community.
Yes.
Yeah, and we'll do it.
Yes.
We'll do it.
And starting with the conversation about a couple of things that we haven't had a chance to sit down. People just think that we haven't. But we can, and we have a great love and respect for each other. So I think that it'll be easy for us to consult and to see where justice is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, blessings.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, the topic next week is going to be... I forgot. Go to the website and I'll list it on there. You are good on the radio.
It goes by really fast. Oh my goodness.
Doesn't that go fast?
It does. Hello. Pretty good.
She said that.
Might go maybe. Is there?
Well,
that light sometimes just stays
still?
on sometimes.
I got the AVS.